Before civilization recorded its first step, humans lived in a world ruled by nature's harsh laws. It was the Stone Age, a long era of silence and beginnings, where every tool was made of stone and every day was a struggle for survival. This age was not just a period of time, but a silent school that taught humanity patience, innovation, and cooperation. How did this being manage to survive and flourish in an environment full of dangers and beasts? And how did it transform from a mere wandering creature into a maker of civilization? In this calm documentary, we will dive deeply into the details of this primitive life. We will shed light on the tools shaped, the fire mastered, and how a small community was woven in the heart of the vast wilderness. We will go beyond the traditional description to see how human thought developed slowly, and how the features of art and belief began to appear in a distant era of human history. The world was a completely different place from what we know today. There were no cities and no civilizations. Nature was the absolute ruler of this world. Early humans lived in a primitive environment full of challenges and dangers, where every step and every day represented a struggle for survival. The environment itself was a threat. Giant predatory animals roamed the plains and forests, and the climate shifted between harsh ice ages and hot periods. Humans at that time had no real protection except their intelligence and ability to adapt. Food was not easily available. Humans relied on hunting and gathering, which tied them directly to the seasons and available resources. The search for food consumed most of their time and energy, and famine was a constant looming threat, especially during the harsh winter. Shelter was the only defense against cold and predators. At first, caves were the natural refuge, but caves were not available everywhere. In this silent, primitive world, humans had to prove their ability to coexist with nature, not just with physical strength but with the power of mind and innovation. Every day in the Stone Age was a new lesson in survival, a quiet beginning of a long journey toward civilization. It was the beginning of the Stone Age, where simple stones transformed from lifeless fragments into effective tools, forming the cornerstone of survival. Making tools was not a random act but an art that required patience, skill, and a deep understanding of materials. Humans began by striking two stones together, creating sharp edges that could be used as primitive knives. Over time, this skill improved, allowing them to shape stones with greater precision and make multipurpose tools. Stone tools became the lifeline of the Stone Age. From them came spearheads and axes, essential for hunting and self-defense against predators. With these tools, humans became more effective at hunting larger prey, which provided better food and larger quantities of hides and bones. Stones were not used for hunting alone. Scrapers were crafted for cleaning animal hides and processing them into clothing, covers, and shelter. Grinding stones were made for crushing wild grains and plants, increasing the variety of food sources. The development of these tools reflected the evolution of human thought. Each tool required planning and imagination for its use, showing growing abstract thinking and innovation. These tools were an extension of the human hand, granting power and the ability to control the environment instead of merely being part of it. Every stone fragment and every sharpened blade was a silent step in humanity's journey toward progress and control. It was the story of a transformation. From a weak being, the discovery and control of fire was a pivotal turning point. Fire was not just a source of warmth but a flame of hope that lit the path of survival and brought a radical change to the lifestyle of early humans. At first, humans may have feared fire and avoided it, but soon they learned to benefit from its flames. Its first use was warmth. Gathering around the fire at night provided families with protection from the freezing cold and warmth inside caves and shelters. Fire was the beating heart of the group, where weary bodies gathered and found comfort. Its role was not limited to warmth. Its glowing flames frightened predators and kept them away from shelters, giving people a sense of security while they slept. Humans transformed from beings haunted by fear in the dark into beings able to protect themselves with a natural power. The importance of fire extended to food as well. When humans learned to cook meat over fire, it became easier to chew and digest, and less likely to cause illness. Cooking also helped preserve food longer, reducing the risk of hunger and ensuring supplies during hard times. Mastering fire was not just a scientific discovery but a reflection of human intelligence, learning, and adaptation. This small flame gave humans confidence to face the challenges of the primitive world and open new horizons of comfort, security, and progress on their long journey toward civilization. Life in the Stone Age was never easy. It was a daily journey in search of food. There was no stability, no farming. Survival depended entirely on hunting and gathering, a complex strategy requiring intelligence, skill, and adaptability. Before civilization recorded its first step, humans lived in a world ruled by nature's harsh laws. It was the Stone Age, a long era of silence and beginnings, where every tool was made of stone and every day was a struggle for survival. This age was not just a period of time, but a silent school that taught humanity patience, innovation, and cooperation. How did this being manage to survive and flourish in an environment full of dangers and beasts? And how did it transform from a mere wandering creature into a maker of civilization? In this calm documentary, we will dive deeply into the details of this primitive life. We will shed light on the tools shaped, the fire mastered, and how a small community was woven in the heart of the vast wilderness. We will go beyond the traditional description to see how human thought developed slowly, and how the features of art and belief began to appear in a distant era of human history. The world was a completely different place from what we know today. There were no cities and no civilizations. Nature was the absolute ruler of this world. Early humans lived in a primitive environment full of challenges and dangers, where every step and every day represented a struggle for survival. The environment itself was a threat. Giant predatory animals roamed the plains and forests, and the climate shifted between harsh ice ages and hot periods. Humans at that time had no real protection except their intelligence and ability to adapt. Food was not easily available. Humans relied on hunting and gathering, which tied them directly to the seasons and available resources. The search for food consumed most of their time and energy, and famine was a constant looming threat, especially during the harsh winter. Shelter was the only defense against cold and predators everywhere, forcing humans to build simple temporary shelters using branches, wood, and hides. In this silent, primitive world, humans had to prove their ability to coexist with nature, not just with physical strength but with the power of mind and innovation. Every day in the Stone Age was a new lesson in survival, a quiet beginning of a long journey towards civilization. It was the beginning of the Stone Age, where simple stones transformed from lifeless fragments into effective tools, forming the cornerstone of survival. Making tools was not a random act but an art that required patience, skill, and a deep understanding of materials. Humans began by striking two stones together, creating sharp edges that could be used as primitive knives. Over time, this skill improved, allowing them to shape stones with greater precision and make multipurpose tools. Stone tools became the lifeline of the Stone Age. From them came spearheads and axes, essential for hunting and self-defense against predators. With these tools, humans became more effective at hunting larger prey, which provided better food and larger quantities of hides and bones. Stones were not used for hunting alone. Scrapers were crafted for cleaning animal hides and processing them into clothing, covers, and shelter. Grinding stones were made for crushing wild grains and plants, increasing the variety of food sources. The development of these tools reflected the evolution of human thought. Each tool required planning and imagination for its use, showing growing abstract thinking and innovation. These tools were an extension of the human hand, granting power and the ability to control the environment instead of merely being part of it. Every stone fragment and every sharpened blade was a silent step in humanity's journey toward progress and control. It was the story of a transformation. It required a deep understanding of animal behavior and precise knowledge of their locations and migration seasons. Early humans learned how to hunt collectively, using stone spears and arrows. Cooperation among the group was the key to success, as they shared in setting traps, surrounding the prey, and then dividing the spoils. Large animals such as mammoths and ibex provided not only meat but also hides for making clothing and shelter, as well as bones for crafting tools. Gathering plants was no less important than hunting. Women and children often carried out this task, collecting wild berries, roots, grains, and edible plants. This gathering required extensive knowledge of the environment and the ability to distinguish poisonous plants from useful ones. These plant sources provided the necessary dietary diversity and complemented the meat-based diet. In certain seasons, early humans moved from one place to another, migrating after herds and plant growth cycles. These migrations were not random but organized, requiring prior planning to know the best and safest routes. These continuous movements allowed humans to explore new lands and led to the spread of humanity across the world. The struggle for survival in the Stone Age was a story of perseverance and intelligence. Every bite of food gained was a small victory against the cruelty of nature, and every passing day added new experience to humanity's silent legacy. Early humans learned that survival depended on the strength of the group. Life in the Stone Age was not merely an individual struggle but a story of cooperation and social organization, building silent bonds among people. This organization distinguished humans and gave them the ability to face the challenges of their environment. Stone Age groups were relatively small. These groups were flexible, changing in size and composition according to environmental conditions and food sources. In summer, they might split into smaller groups to gather plants, and in winter, they might gather in sheltered areas to ensure warmth and safety. Division of labor was essential for communal life. While men focused on hunting, which required strength, skill, and risk, women dedicated their efforts to gathering plants, processing hides, making tools, and caring for children. This specialization of tasks was not just the distribution of responsibilities, but a complete system that ensured all aspects of life continued in balance. Within these groups, unwritten rules of life emerged. Respect for elders was crucial, as their knowledge of hunting, migration, and the environment was priceless. There was also a deep sense of shared responsibility. Food was distributed equally among all, ensuring that no one was left to hunger or cold. This social organization enabled humans to face threats larger than their individual abilities. Collective hunting of large animals, defending shelters against predators, and traveling long distances, all these tasks required unity and cooperation. The group became a silent human shield that eased the harshness of the outside world. As early humans learned to hunt and craft tools, they slowly realized that survival depended not only on the strength of their hands, but on the power of their minds and their ability to express themselves. In the silence of the Stone Age, the seeds of the first language began to form. Thoughts moved from mind to voice, and from hand to wall, in a silent attempt to surpass the limits of the body. At first, language may have been simple gestures and sounds expressing danger or food. But collective hunting and the division of complex tasks required humans to develop better ways to communicate. Thus, language enabled generations to learn from each other, as elders passed down to the young the secrets of hunting, knowledge of water sources, and the skill of making better tools. This oral knowledge was the true treasure that ensured the survival of the group. On this journey, humans found another way of expression. In the darkness of deep caves, where fire was the only light, Stone Age artists began to paint their world on rocky walls. This art was not mere decoration but a visual language that told stories and recorded events. They drew the animals they hunted, mammoths, ibex, and bison, with astonishing accuracy and detail, showing a deep understanding of these creatures' behavior. These paintings may have been created for spiritual or magical reasons, perhaps used in hunting rituals, with the belief that drawing the animal gave the hunter power over it. Or they may have been expressions of early humans' belief in a spiritual world. Colors were made from minerals and earth, mixed with animal fats, and applied to cave walls and silent works of art that carried within them feelings of fear, hope, and reverence for nature. Language and art were decisive steps in humanity's journey. They allowed humans to think beyond the present moment. These silent whispers from the caves stand as eternal testimony that humans were not merely beings struggling for survival, but also beings searching for meaning in the face of a world where everything was mysterious and threatening. Early humans did not settle only for the material struggle of survival, but also sought to understand their place in the universe. In the silence of the Stone Age, the first beliefs and rituals began to form, a silent attempt to communicate with the hidden forces that controlled weather, hunting, life, and death. It was a profound spiritual journey, no less important than the search for food or shelter. Death and its mysteries were the first to spark human wonder. The sight of a lifeless body motionless pushed humans to question the fate of the soul. This questioning led to the emergence of the first burial rituals. In many archaeological sites, skeletons have been found carefully buried and surrounded by tools, flowers, and food. This burial was not merely the removal of a body, but a ritual with deep meanings. Such behavior indicated a firm belief in life after death and that the deceased might need these objects on their journey. These rituals marked the beginning of humanity's understanding of the concept of soul and immortality. Beliefs were not limited to death, but extended to natural phenomena. Humans tried to explain lightning, thunder, and floods that could destroy entire areas, as well as the migration seasons of animals that determined the fate of the group. They believed that these phenomena were moved by powerful spirits, which led to the practice of rituals, to bring rain, ensure plentiful hunting, or protect the group from evil. Despite their simplicity, the psychological and social impact, this search for meaning was not merely an escape from reality, but a fundamental part of the evolution of human consciousness. These beliefs gave humans a sense of belonging to something greater than themselves and provided hope in facing their fear of the unknown. These rituals also strengthened social bonds, for participation in a shared ritual united the group and made it stronger. In the silence of the Stone Age, rituals and beliefs were silent whispers of the beginning of humanity's spiritual journey, a journey in search of meaning in a world that offered no easy answers. Shelter in the Stone Age was not merely a roof protecting from rain, but a fortress against cold, a shield against danger, and a place where life was gathered. Early humans learned how to transform what nature provided into primitive houses that reflected their intelligence and survival skills. At first, caves were the natural shelters humans relied upon. These rocky hollows provided excellent protection from wind, snow, and rain, as well as relative warmth that shielded bodies from freezing cold. They also provided safety from predators, as fires were lit at cave entrances to keep them away night after night. Although caves were not available everywhere, they formed the center of life in many communities and stood as silent witnesses to the dawn of human art and rituals found in their dark depths. With time, as humans expanded into areas without caves, they learned to build shelters for themselves. These primitive homes were constructed from available materials: branches, sticks, large bones, and animal hides. Men and women worked together to build these shelters. Branches were fixed into the ground to form a structure, then covered with thick hides or mud to protect the inhabitants from the elements. These houses were small and warm. In polar regions, where snow was abundant, humans learned how to use it to build igloos. These homes were designed with unique engineering to provide excellent insulation from external cold and stood as living proof of human ingenuity in the harshest conditions. Shelter in the Stone Age was more than just a place to sleep. It was the center of the community and the place where daily activities took place, where tools were crafted, stories told, and warmth shared. Every bone or branch used in building a home was a new step toward controlling nature, a silent affirmation of humanity's ability to create safety in a dangerous world. These simple homes formed the nucleus of the first community, the journey of humankind from a life of constant wandering to the beginnings of settlement. While stone tools were the foundation upon which early humans built their lives, they were not all that they possessed. With the accumulation of knowledge, humans learned to look beyond stone and transform other materials around them into tools of greater precision and specialization. This was the beginning of an age of silent innovation, where bone, wood, and horn became new sources of strength. Bones, once discarded after hunting, were now shaped into tools that stone could not provide. Humans polished bones and turned them into sharp needles essential for sewing animal hides. These needles were used to make warmer, more suitable clothing and to repair shelters, offering better protection from the bitter cold. This was not just a tool, but a huge step toward comfort and safety. Bone and horn were also used to make arrowheads and spear tips lighter and more effective than those made of stone. These new tools gave hunters a greater advantage over prey and reduced the effort required. At times, simple tools made from bones were used for digging or building traps, showing the growing complexity of tools in that era. Innovation was not limited to bones. Wood was used for handles for stone tools or for simple digging sticks to gather roots from the soil. Every material in nature offered a new opportunity for innovation. This specialization in tools was a silent witness to the evolution of human thought. No longer did humans see stone as the only tool. They now saw everything around them as a resource. This was the true beginning of craftsmanship, where humans demonstrated their ability to. The meals of early humans were not like what we know today, but they were rich in variety, generously offered by nature to those who knew how to seek them. While hunting was the main source of protein, The Stone Age diet relied heavily on a wide range of plant sources that provided essential nutrition and ensured survival in difficult times. Gathering food was not a random act but required deep knowledge of the environment. Humans knew when and where certain plants bore fruit and how to distinguish edible from poisonous ones. Women, in particular, possessed this knowledge and passed it down from generation to generation. They gathered berries, acorns, roots, and leafy plants that provided calories and essential minerals. Acorns were an important food source, and despite their bitter taste, early humans learned to treat them by boiling or soaking to remove the bitterness, then grinding them into a kind of primitive flour. This flour was used to make flatbread cooked on hot stones, providing essential food during the winter. In addition to plants, humans took advantage of everything nature offered. Insects and larvae were considered rich sources of protein and were collected and eaten. Fish and marine animals were caught using sharp spears or simple traps in coastal areas and rivers. This wide variety of resources highlighted humans' ability to adapt to any environment they lived in. This primitive table was a silent story. There was no luxury or abundance, but each day was a new search and gathering. And yet, these meals gave humans the strength to continue their lives and shape the dietary pattern that contributed to their biological and mental evolution. Humans in the Stone Age were not bound to one place. Their lives were a series of long journeys driven by the urgent need for food and safety. These journeys were an essential part of their identity, a never-ending story. Migration was not a random decision, but a strategy for survival. In certain seasons, animals migrated in search of new pastures, and humans followed them, knowing their survival depended on these herds. This pursuit required deep environmental knowledge, the ability to read footprints and understand animal behavior. These journeys were filled with dangers. Frozen rivers or rugged terrain posed constant threats to survival. Human groups traveled in small bands united by one goal: survival. Each person had a role. Men explored the path and protected the group from predators, while women and children gathered fruits and plants along the way. These journeys strengthened social bonds, for cooperation and solidarity were the only path to survival. Every passing day taught them new lessons of patience and perseverance. This wandering life allowed humanity to spread across the world, from the African plains to the cold continents. Step by step, early humans adapted to every new environment they discovered. They changed their tools, modified their hunting styles, and built shelters suited to their surroundings. This flexibility was what made them the most successful creatures in adaptation. At the end of every journey, there was always hope. Hope for a new land rich in resources, hope for better hunting seasons, and hope that tomorrow would be safer than today. But while nature offered food and shelter, it also imposed harsh challenges on their bodies. Each passing day carried the risk of injury or illness in a world that knew nothing of modern medicine or healthcare. Injuries were common. Crafting sharp stone tools or hunting in the wild was filled with risks. A broken bone or deep wound could mean death, for there were no surgeons or antibiotics to stop infections. The group relied on the knowledge of someone, often an elder, who used certain herbs or leaves to stop. Diseases were no less deadly. In the absence of hygiene, infections spread quickly within small groups. Respiratory illnesses were common, especially in caves and enclosed shelters. Children and the elderly were the most vulnerable. Evidence shows that death rates were very high. This daily struggle against pain and disease was a silent story of the resilience of the human body. Every scar on skin or healed bone was a witness to an individual battle for survival. Despite the harsh conditions, humans learned and adapted. Every wound and illness brought new knowledge, paving the way for a deeper understanding of nature's healing treasures. Clothing was one of the most important innovations. After hunting, meat was not the only gain. There were hides as well. Humans learned to clean and treat these hides with stone and bone tools, then sew them together with needles made of bone or horn. These primitive clothes provided warmth and protection from the bitter cold, allowing humans to live in colder regions. Innovation did not stop at clothing. Rope was another crucial tool in daily life. Made from plant fibers or stretched animal hides, it had multiple uses. It was used in traps, to fasten spearheads to shafts, to carry objects, and even to build temporary shelters. Rope making was a precise craft that required patience. Storage containers were also a silent but vital invention. In the absence of pottery, Early humans used animal hides or woven plant baskets to store and collect food. These containers helped them carry more resources and store them, reducing the constant need for food gathering. These small innovations did not change the world at once, but they were essential parts of human development. Every piece of hide sewn, every rope renewed, every container made was a new step toward comfort and safety, proof that early humans were not only hunters but also craftsmen and inventors in their daily struggle for life. I would like to emphasize in closing this work that all presented here is a historical account of the material side of early human life, based on discovered evidence. Everything we have presented was for the sake of knowledge and reflection on the history of humanity.